Pause for a second. What if the reason you're not rich has nothing to do with effort, and everything to do with where you're standing on the board? Most people never ask that question. They just keep moving, faster, longer, harder, and somehow they stay exactly where they started. Here's the uncomfortable truth no one says out loud. The world doesn't reward effort. It rewards position. And the moment you understand that, everything you were taught about money starts to feel suspicious. You've seen it. The man who barely seems stressed, yet his money keeps growing. The guy who never appears rushed, never desperate, never exhausted, yet opportunities chase him like loyal dogs. Meanwhile, you're busy saving, busy grinding, busy proving your worth, busy doing everything you were told would eventually work. And that word, eventually, has quietly stolen years of your life. Because while you were focused on effort, the wealthy were focused on leverage. Here's where the tension begins. Imagine two men standing in the same storm. One is soaked, freezing, miserable. The other is dry, warm, untouched. Same rain, different shelter. That shelter is positioning. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Not money in numbers, but money as power dynamics, as angles, as pressure points. He knew something dangerous. People who rely on fairness starve. People who rely on strategy feast. And before you reject that idea, notice how quickly your mind tries to defend the system. That's cynical. That's immoral. That's not how it should be. Exactly. You're still thinking in should. The wealthy think in is. This is where most viewers click away, because this moment threatens identity. If wealth isn't about hard work, then what have you been sacrificing your life for? But stay with me, because what comes next isn't motivational fluff. It's unsettling clarity. Let me tell you about a man named Adrian. Adrian wasn't lazy, he wasn't stupid, he wasn't irresponsible. He did everything right. Worked overtime, saved carefully, never took risks he couldn't justify. And every year, his life felt tighter, bills louder, time shorter, hope thinner. Then there was Marcus. Marcus didn't work harder than Adrian. In fact, some weeks he worked less. But Marcus chose his position first, then allowed effort to amplify it. He didn't ask, how hard can I push myself? He asked, where should I stand so I barely need to push at all? That question changed everything. Here's the brutal insight most people never hear. Effort applied to the wrong position doesn't build wealth. It builds exhaustion, and exhaustion makes you obedient. Tired people don't challenge rules. Tired people don't negotiate. Tired people don't reposition themselves. They comply. That's why the system praises hard work so loudly, because it keeps you busy, and busy people don't redesign the game. Now here's the cliff edge. If money truly flows downhill, and positioning determines the slope, then the most important financial decision you'll ever make isn't how hard you work. It's where you allow yourself to stand. And in the next part, I'm going to reveal the first Machiavellian positioning law the wealthy follow instinctively. A rule so counterintuitive that most people reject it instantly, even though it explains why some men rise effortlessly while others drown no matter how hard they swim. Here's the first mistake that keeps good men poor. They stand exactly where effort is expected. That sounds harmless, responsible even. But in the money game, it's fatal. The moment effort becomes expected, it loses value. Think about that. If everyone around you is grinding, then grinding becomes invisible. If everyone is replaceable, then effort stops being rewarded and starts being exploited. This is the first Machiavellian law of positioning. Never place yourself where effort is the currency. Place yourself where effort is rare. Most people misunderstand this instantly. They hear it and think, so I should be lazy. No. That's the lie the system feeds you to keep you confused. The wealthy don't avoid effort. They avoid crowded effort. Let me explain. Picture a gold mine. At the surface, thousands of men are digging with bare hands. Sweat, blood, competition. Each man replaces the next. Now picture one man who owns the land. He doesn't dig, he doesn't compete. He decides who gets access. Who do you think gets rich? The diggers work harder. The owner positioned himself better. This is where most people feel uncomfortable. Because deep down, you were taught that being needed means being valuable. Machiavelli would laugh at that. Being needed makes you dependent. Being scarce makes you powerful, and power attracts money. Here's the brutal pattern. When effort is common, It's cheap. When labor is replaceable, wages stagnate. When obedience is expected, leverage disappears. That's why entire industries are built on burning people out. Not because companies hate workers, but because exhausted people don't bargain. Now watch what rich men do differently. They seek positions where decisions matter more than hours, access matters more than output, control matters more than contribution. They don't ask, how can I work harder than everyone else? They ask, what role would be painful to replace? That's positioning. And here's the part nobody tells you. The system rewards you at first for standing where effort is expected. You get praise, validation, a sense of moral superiority. You're such a hard worker. You're reliable. We need people like you. Those words feel good until you realize what they really mean. They mean, you are useful exactly where you are. Please don't move. This is the invisible cage. Hard work becomes your identity, and identities are hard to abandon, because if you stop grinding, who are you? That fear keeps men trapped for decades. Now here's where tension spikes. The wealthy know something dangerous. The more effort a position requires, the less negotiating power it gives you. Why? Because desperation leaks. If your survival depends on effort today, you can't threaten to walk away tomorrow. And anyone who can't walk away will never dictate terms. This is why Machiavelli warned rulers never to rely on goodwill or loyalty, because loyalty fades when pressure rises. Position does not. So here's the uncomfortable question I want you sitting with right now. If you disappeared from your role tomorrow, how painful would that be for the system? Mild inconvenience or structural damage? Be honest, because that answer reveals exactly why money treats you the way it does. And in the next part, we're going deeper, because once you understand where not to stand, the next law explains how the rich engineer scarcity, even when they aren't smarter, faster, or more talented than you. This next rule is where most people morally panic, and where the wealthy quietly pull ahead. Here's the strange thing about rich men. They don't chase opportunities. Opportunities chase them. That's not confidence. That's design. Most people spend their lives hunting. New jobs, new side hustles, new chances, always reaching, always hoping. And hope is expensive. Machiavelli understood something brutal about human behavior. People value what feels scarce, even when it isn't. The wealthy exploit this law constantly, not with lies, but with positioning. Let me show you how. Two men walk into the same room. One says, I really need this to work. The other says nothing. He listens. He pauses. He waits. Who do you think gets better terms? Desperation speaks louder than words, and scarcity isn't about supply. It's about who appears to need who more. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Most people leak neediness without realizing it. They reply too fast. They explain too much. They offer discounts before being asked. They volunteer effort, hoping for approval. Each move screams the same thing. I need this more than you do. And the market punishes that instinct mercilessly. The wealthy do the opposite. They slow time. They create pauses. They delay decisions. They let silence do the negotiating. Why? Because whoever can wait controls the frame. This is the second Machiavellian law of positioning. Never appear eager. Eagerness collapses value. Here's where most people rebel. That's manipulative. That's dishonest. That's playing games. No, it's understanding human psychology. Money moves toward confidence, not morality, and confidence is communicated through detachment. Think about it. When something is easy to get, you don't fight for it. When access feels limited, value explodes. The wealthy manufacture this effect by structuring their lives so they're never cornered. Multiple income streams, multiple options, multiple exits. Not because they love complexity, but because options create scarcity pressure. If one deal fails, they shrug. If one door closes, they turn sideways. That calm? It terrifies the other side, because calm signals power. Now let me tell you about Leon. Leon wasn't a genius. He wasn't born rich, he didn't have connections, but he did one thing differently. He stopped chasing. Instead of applying everywhere, he positioned himself in places where few could operate. He specialized in decisions others avoided, complex, uncomfortable, high-risk zones, and suddenly people needed him. Offers came slower at first, then better, then on his terms. Nothing about Leon changed, except where he stood. This is the twist most people miss. Scarcity isn't something you find. It's something you create, and you don't create it by withholding effort. You create it by withholding access. Access to your time, access to your energy, access to your agreement. That's why rich men say no more than yes. Not to be arrogant, but to sharpen value. And here's the dangerous realization. If you always say yes, your yes means nothing. If you're always available, you're forgettable. Scarcity is a signal, and the market reads it instantly. Now here's the cliffhanger. Once you stop chasing, once you stop appearing eager, once you start controlling access, something strange happens. People begin to test you. They push. They provoke. They try to see if your detachment is real. And how you respond in those moments determines whether you rise or get quietly pushed back into the crowd. In the next part, I'll show you the Machiavellian test the wealthy pass instinctively, a test that breaks most men the moment pressure appears. Fail it, and all your positioning collapses. Pass it, and your leverage multiplies overnight. Here's where almost everyone fails, not at the beginning, not in the struggle, but right when pressure shows up. Because pressure reveals positioning, the wealthy expect this moment. The rest are blindsided by it. Here's what happens. The second you start creating scarcity, the moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop explaining yourself, people push back. They question you. They rush you. They guilt you. They threaten to walk away. This is not accidental. This is the pressure test. And Machiavelli understood it perfectly. Power is never given quietly. It is tested before it is respected. Most men fail this test instantly. They panic. They over-explain. They soften their stance. They rush to reassure. Let me clarify. I didn't mean it like that. I can adjust. I don't want to cause problems. And in that moment, their value collapses. Because pressure doesn't test logic. It tests identity. If your identity is tied to being liked, being helpful, being agreeable, you will fold the second discomfort appears. The wealthy train themselves differently. They expect tension. They welcome it. They treat it as confirmation, because resistance only appears when leverage is real. Let me tell you about Victor. Victor spent years being overlooked, not because he lacked skill, but because he leaked compliance. He agreed too fast, adjusted too easily, gave too much without being asked. Then one day Victor stopped bending, not aggressively, not emotionally, just calmly. When pressed, he paused. When rushed, he slowed. When challenged, he stayed silent. At first, people didn't like it. Then something strange happened. They respected it. Because calm under pressure signals one thing. I don't need this as much as you think. That signal is nuclear. Here's the Machiavellian law most people never learn. Whoever breaks composure first loses control of the frame. The wealthy protect composure like a weapon. They don't argue emotionally. They don't defend their worth. They don't justify their position. They let the other side talk themselves into revealing need. And the moment the other side needs resolution more than they do, the game is over. This is why rich men appear cold. Not because they lack emotion, but because emotion is expensive. Emotion hands leverage away for free. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people think pressure means something is going wrong. In reality, pressure means you're standing somewhere valuable, and the system is trying to see if you're strong enough to stay there. So ask yourself this: when tension appears, do you tighten your stance or retreat to comfort? Because every retreat teaches the world exactly how far it can push you. And once that boundary is learned, it's almost impossible to undo. Now here's the cliffhanger. Once you pass the pressure test, once your composure holds, once people realize you won't fold, they switch tactics. They stop pushing and start offering. And in the next part, I'll reveal the law that explains why the wealthy rarely ask for opportunities, yet constantly receive them. This is where positioning turns into dominance. There's a moment in the money game that most people never experience. It's the moment when you stop asking and start being asked. No announcement, no celebration, just a subtle shift in how people treat you. This is the offer shift. And once it happens, your financial life never feels the same again. Here's how it begins. After you hold your ground under pressure. After you stop chasing. After you maintain composure when others expect retreat, people reassess you, not consciously, instinctively. They start thinking, he might walk away. He doesn't seem dependent. He's not desperate. And that thought triggers fear, because the person who can walk away controls the terms. This is the third Machiavellian law of money positioning. Never request what can be offered. Silence forces value to surface. Most men destroy their leverage by asking too early. They pitch, they persuade, they convince. The wealthy wait. They let discomfort do the work. Think about negotiations. The side that speaks first after a proposal is usually weaker. Why? Because silence creates a vacuum. And humans rush to fill vacuums. When you don't ask, others start offering. Better terms, higher numbers, extra concessions. Not out of generosity, but out of uncertainty. Uncertainty makes people defensive. Defensive people overpay. This is why rich men are often vague, not unclear, just non-committal. I'll think about it. Maybe. Not sure yet. Those phrases sound passive. They're not. They create imbalance, because now the other side is emotionally invested in changing your mind. Here's the story of Daniel. Daniel used to pitch relentlessly. Every meeting was a performance, every conversation a sale, and nothing stuck. Then Daniel changed one thing. He stopped closing. He presented his value once, clearly, then went quiet. No follow-ups, no reminders, no pressure. At first deals fell through, then something shifted. People came back, with better terms. Because rejection feels worse when it isn't fought. Silence makes people replay you in their own head. Now here's the part that feels dangerous. When offers start coming to you, you must resist the urge to grab them. This is where most people sabotage themselves. They accept too fast, they overcelebrate, they signal relief, and relief kills value. The wealthy respond differently. They pause, they weigh, they hesitate just enough, not to manipulate but to maintain balance, because the moment someone senses you're grateful, the power shifts back. Machiavelli warned, gratitude creates obligation. Obligation creates control. So the rich accept calmly, as if it was expected, as if they had other options anyway. Now ask yourself something honestly. When opportunity appears, do you feel excitement or fear? Excitement says, I'm choosing. Fear says, I can't lose this. The market hears the difference. And here's the cliffhanger. Once offers start coming, once you stop chasing money, once money starts positioning itself around you, there's one final transformation left. It's the most uncomfortable law of all. Because it explains why the wealthy don't just gain money, they keep it. And in the next part, we expose the rule that separates temporary winners from permanent ones. The rich don't hold money tightly, they let it move, and that terrifies everyone else. Most men treat money like oxygen. Lose it and they panic, have it and they cling. But Machiavelli understood something colder. What you cling to controls you. What you can release obeys you. This is the detachment rule. And it's why many people make money once, then lose it forever. Attachment creates fear. Fear creates bad decisions. The wealthy train themselves to never need a single outcome. They don't love deals. They don't worship assets. They don't emotionally merge with investments. Because emotion narrows vision. Let me show you how this plays out. Two men invest in the same opportunity. One checks it obsessively, loses sleep, panics at fluctuations. The other barely watches. Who do you think exits cleanly? Detachment sharpens judgment. When you're not afraid to lose, you see clearly, and clarity compounds. This is the fourth Machiavellian law. Never depend on one stream, one partner, or one plan. Not because diversification is trendy, but because dependency breeds weakness. The market smells dependency instantly. It shows up in your voice, your posture, your timing. The wealthy eliminate this vulnerability before it ever appears. They always maintain exits. Not dramatic ones, quiet ones. Backup plans you never hear about. Alternatives they never announce. This is why rich men seem calm in chaos. They already planned for loss. Now here's the part most people get wrong. Detachment is not indifference. The wealthy care deeply. They're just not emotionally enslaved. They commit fully, without attachment to outcome. That balance is rare, and that rarity creates advantage. Consider this. If losing a deal would ruin you, You'll sabotage it trying to save it. If losing a deal barely affects you, you'll negotiate fearlessly. Fearless negotiators dominate quietly. Now here's the identity shift. When you stop clinging to money, money starts trusting you. Because money moves toward calm hands. Volatile people repel it, stable minds attract it. That's why lottery winners lose everything, and disciplined strategists multiply quietly. Now here's the dangerous insight. Most people say they want wealth, but what they really want is security. Those are not the same. Wealth requires risk tolerance. Security demands predictability. You cannot fully pursue both. The rich choose control over comfort. That choice defines everything. Now here's the cliffhanger. Once you master detachment, once you're no longer controlled by money, you unlock the final advantage. An advantage so powerful, it makes wealth almost inevitable. In the next part, we reveal the last Machiavellian law, the one that ensures money doesn't just come to you, but stays loyal. Here's the final illusion that ruins most people who finally make money. They think money stays because they're good to it. It doesn't. Money stays where power stays. Machiavelli warned rulers about this centuries ago, and the lesson applies perfectly to wealth. Loyalty based on kindness is temporary. Loyalty based on structure is permanent. Most people try to make money feel safe. The wealthy make money dependent. Let me explain. When a man suddenly earns more, he relaxes. He spends to celebrate. He helps everyone. He becomes generous too quickly. It looks noble. It feels good. But it's dangerous. Because money interprets looseness as weakness. Wealth doesn't stay where discipline disappears. This is the fifth Machiavellian law of money positioning. Never let money feel more free than you are. The rich impose rules on their wealth. Budgets are automated. Access is restricted. Decisions are delayed, not because they're cheap, but because structure preserves power. Here's the harsh truth. Money that isn't governed will leave you the moment emotion takes over. This is why many people peak once. They celebrate too early. They trust too fast. They expand before stabilizing. The wealthy do the opposite. They consolidate first. When income increases, they tighten controls. When profits rise, they slow expansion. When success arrives, they become quieter. Because visibility invites extraction, and extraction destroys leverage. Let me tell you about Noah. Noah made his first real money in his mid-30s, enough to finally breathe. Within a year, it was gone, not stolen, not wasted, distributed. Friends needed help, family needed support, opportunities needed funding. Noah became the solution, and solutions get drained. Contrast that with Elias. Elias increased income too, but no one noticed. He changed nothing publicly, same lifestyle, same pace. Behind the scenes he built systems, accounts with barriers, time delays on spending, clear separation between income and access. Money couldn't escape him, even if he wanted it to. That's loyalty, not emotional loyalty, structural loyalty. Money stayed because it had nowhere else to go. Now here's the uncomfortable realization. Most people lose money not because they're irresponsible, but because they're too open. They confuse generosity with power. They confuse kindness with control. Machiavelli would say, mercy without limits creates dependency, and dependency breeds resentment. The wealthy help selectively, privately, on their terms, never from guilt, never from pressure. Because pressure is another form of weakness. Now here's the final tension before the conclusion. Once you position yourself correctly, once effort is no longer your currency, once scarcity, composure, detachment, and structure are in place, there's only one thing left, a choice. To remain invisible and powerful, or visible and hunted. And in the final part, I'll reveal the ultimate decision the wealthy make, the one that determines whether they quietly dominate for life, or lose everything the moment attention arrives. Here's the choice that ends the game. Not money, not effort, not intelligence, visibility. This is where every path splits. Because once wealth begins to stick, once money flows toward you instead of away, the world starts watching, and attention is never neutral. Machiavelli understood this better than most. The danger is not gaining power. The danger is being seen holding it. Most people think success should be loud, posted, celebrated, displayed, cars, watches, houses, proof, but proof attracts predators. The wealthy learn this lesson early, sometimes painfully. They discover that visibility invites, requests, expectations, resentment, regulation, extraction. And extraction is the silent killer of wealth. This is the final Machiavellian law of money: appear ordinary, operate strategically. The richest men you'll never hear about live unremarkable lives on the surface. No flexing, no announcements, no performances, because power that needs applause is already weakening. They understand something crucial. The moment people know you have resources, they begin planning how to access them. Friends become opportunities. Family becomes obligation. Strangers become entitled. So the wealthy separate identity from assets. They don't let money define them publicly. They don't let success change their behavior externally. Internally, they're precise, controlled, strategic. Externally, they're boring, and boring is protection. This is why old money whispers while new money shouts. Shouting is insecurity. Whispering is confidence. Now here's the final realization. Wealth isn't about accumulation. It's about positioning over time, effort placed where it compounds, scarcity maintained without ego, composure under pressure, detachment from outcomes, structure over emotion, invisibility over validation. That's the full system, not luck, not hustle culture, not fairy tales, just cold, calm positioning. So ask yourself one last question. Do you want to look rich, or do you want to stay rich? Because you can't optimize for both. The moment you choose invisibility, the game stops controlling you. And that's the real victory. Not money, not status, freedom from the rules that keep everyone else trapped.